Imagine waking up one morning to find that the money in your bank account, the savings you've worked your entire life for, is suddenly worth a fraction of what it was just yesterday. This isn't a scene from a dystopian movie. This has been the chilling, real-life economic reality for the people of Iraq for years, a relentless roller coaster of hope and despair dictated by a single, volatile commodity, oil. The truth that every Iraqi knows in their bones, but is rarely spoken about so bluntly on international news, is that Iraq's entire existence, its very survival, is tethered to a resource that is as much a curse as it is a blessing. We talk about an economy being oil-dependent, but for Iraq, this dependency is so absolute, so total, that it borders on the suicidal. Official data from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund consistently paints a staggering picture. Over 90% of the Iraqi government's annual budget, the very money that pays for salaries, builds schools, paves roads, and funds hospitals, comes directly from the sale of crude oil. Think about that for a moment. 90%. That means nearly every public service, every infrastructure project, every grain of wheat the government imports is funded by what happens to the global price of a barrel of oil. When the price is high, there is a fleeting sense of prosperity. Government projects get funded, and there's talk of development. But when the price crashes, as it did in 2014 and again in 2020, the entire nation holds its breath. Budgets are slashed, salaries are delayed, and a palpable anxiety grips the streets from Baghdad to Basra. This isn't just an economic model. It's a national gamble with the futures of 40 million people, a gamble where the odds are set by global geopolitics, OPEC decisions, and the shifting tides of international energy markets far beyond Iraq's control. The Iraqi dinar becomes a puppet on a string, its value jerked around by these external forces, leading to that terrifying devaluation I mentioned, where people's life savings literally evaporate overnight. This systemic vulnerability is further entrenched by a political system, born out of decades of conflict and foreign intervention that has, in many ways, institutionalized this oil dependency. The political structure, with its complex system of muassasa ta'afiyya, or sectarian apportionment, has effectively turned government ministries into fiefdoms for political parties, with oil revenue acting as the prize to be divided. This has created a powerful elite with a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, because the flow of oil money is what fuels their political machines, their patronage networks, and their grip on power. Why risk building a diverse, self-sufficient economy when you can simply turn on the taps and watch the money flow? The result is a tragic paradox. A nation sitting on one of the world's largest reservoirs of wealth, yet whose people are perpetually one global recession away from economic collapse. The human cost of this is immense. You have a generation of brilliant, young, educated Iraqis, engineers, doctors, software developers, whose ambitions are stifled because the economy offers them no future outside the bloated public sector, where a job is often not about merit but about wasta, or connections. This is the brutal, unvarnished reality that has defined Iraq for the last 2 decades. It's a house built on sand, and for years, every Iraqi has been waiting, hoping, and praying for the foundation to be replaced with something solid, something sustainable, something that isn't at the mercy of a fluctuating number on a screen. This deep-seated, generational yearning for stability is the essential context, the powder keg of frustration and hope that makes the changes we are starting to see today not just policy shifts, but a potential revolution from the ground up. But what if I told you that the very system which has held Iraq captive for decades is now being dismantled, piece by piece, from the inside out? The signs of this great unraveling are not always visible in dramatic, headline-grabbing explosions, but in the quiet, determined hum of servers in newly fortified data centers, in the swift execution of digital transactions that bypass corrupt middlemen, and in the sudden, unprecedented movements emanating from the corridors of the Central Bank of Iraq. This is not a theoretical discussion anymore. This is a tangible, data-driven revolution already in motion, and it's being spearheaded by an unlikely weapon: financial technology. The most compelling evidence of this shift lies in the explosive growth of digital payments. According to internal reports from Iraqi private banks that have been analyzed by financial watchdogs, the volume of electronic financial transactions, including wire transfers and mobile wallet payments, has surged by over 300% in the past 18 months alone. This isn't just a matter of convenience. It's a direct assault on the shadow economy that has crippled the state. For years, a massive, cash-based society allowed corruption to flourish, with billions of dollars in oil revenue literally vanishing from state coffers in sacks of physical cash, a system that was opaque, untraceable, and utterly vulnerable to theft. Now, with the central bank's aggressive push for a nationwide digital payment platform, every dinar spent on a government salary, every dollar allocated for a public contract, leaves a digital footprint. This creates an auditable trail, a permanent record that makes it exponentially more difficult for funds to be siphoned off illegally. This is the silent, technological front in the war on corruption, and it's proving to be more effective than 1,000 anti-corruption speeches. Parallel to this, the central bank has embarked on a ruthless campaign to clean up the banking sector, a sector that was, for a long time, a wild west of unregulated practices and shell companies. In the last year, we have witnessed the unprecedented revocation of licenses from dozens of exchange companies and private banks that failed to comply with stringent international anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing standards set by bodies like the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. This is not a minor regulatory adjustment. It is a surgical strike on the financial networks that have long been used to launder money and funnel illicit funds to militias and political blocs, destabilizing the entire country. By forcing these institutions to integrate with the international banking system through the SWIFT network and adhere to global transparency protocols, the government is effectively cutting off the financial oxygen to the very groups that have profited from chaos. And this brings us to the most critical and most debated aspect of this transformation: the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. While the government has not officially confirmed a specific new rate, the intense monetary reforms, the hoarding of foreign currency reserves, and the strategic tightening of the money supply all point towards a deliberate, calculated effort to strengthen the national currency. The objective is clear: to break the cycle of devaluation that has decimated the purchasing power of ordinary Iraqis, and to restore confidence in the Iraqi dinar as a store of value, not just a temporary token. This is a high-stakes monetary policy maneuver, but it is being underpinned by the concrete progress in the real economy. The push for digitalization and a cashless society is not happening in a vacuum. It is the essential prerequisite for a stronger currency, because it ensures that when the dinar's value increases, the benefits flow to the people and the formal economy, not to the black marketeers and currency speculators who have grown rich off the nation's instability. This is a coordinated, multi-pronged strategy where banking reform, digital transformation, and monetary policy are finally working in concert, creating a new, resilient financial architecture designed to withstand the shocks that have defined Iraq's past. So where does this audacious, nationwide pivot ultimately lead? What does the finish line actually look like for the average Iraqi family when the dust of this economic revolution settles? The answer lies not just in stabilized currency or cleaner banks, but in the fundamental rewiring of Iraq's potential, unlocking a future that is no longer chained to the underground reservoirs of crude oil, but is instead powered by the boundless potential lying dormant in its youth. Imagine an Iraq where a young graduate in Mosul no longer has to beg for a government job but can instead launch a tech startup, securing digital payments from customers in Baghdad and Basra through a secure, instant platform, her ambition no longer stifled by a corrupt or cash-only system. Envision a farmer in Diyala using a smartphone app to get a microloan for new equipment, his creditworthiness judged by a digital financial history instead of a tribal connection, finally accessing the capital needed to grow his business. This is the tangible endgame of these reforms, the birth of a vibrant, diversified private sector that can actually compete. The relentless focus on digital infrastructure is deliberately laying the groundwork for this new economy, one where e-commerce, fintech, and IT services can flourish, creating millions of jobs for the massive, tech-savvy young population that the state could never hope to employ. This isn't a pipe dream. The data is already hinting at this shift. Reports from Iraq's Ministry of Communications indicate a staggering surge in internet penetration and mobile data usage, with millions of new users coming online each year, creating a ready-made market for digital services. Furthermore, the government's quiet but determined push to attract foreign investment beyond the oil sector is starting to yield preliminary results, with memoranda of understanding being signed in fields like renewable energy, logistics, and telecommunications. These investors are not coming out of charity. They are coming because the reforms have created a more predictable, transparent, and bankable environment. The fight against corruption and the push for financial transparency are, in essence, the nation's new business card, signaling to the world that Iraq is finally open for business on its own terms. This creates a powerful virtuous cycle. Foreign investment brings technology and expertise, which creates high-quality jobs, which increases domestic spending and broadens the tax base, which in turn funds better public services like education and healthcare, finally freeing the government from its debilitating, near-total reliance on oil revenue. This is the ultimate goal, to build an economy that is shock-proof, an Iraq that can withstand the inevitable ups and downs of the global oil market, because its fortunes are now diversified across multiple thriving sectors. The journey is far from over, and the entrenched interests that have profited from the old, broken system will not surrender quietly. The path ahead will be fraught with political resistance and bureaucratic inertia. But the genie is out of the bottle. The Iraqi people have seen the blueprint for a different future, one of dignity, self-reliance, and prosperity, and that is a vision they will not easily surrender. This is more than an economic policy shift. It is a reclamation of national destiny. And this is where you, our audience, become a part of this story. We have laid out the evidence, connected the dots from the central bank to the digital wallet, and shown you the scale of the change underway. But this conversation is too critical to end here. We want to hear from you. Do you believe this transformation is sustainable? What are the biggest obstacles you see? If you are in Iraq, what changes, big or small, have you witnessed in your own daily economic life? Share your perspective, your experiences, and your questions in the comments below. Let's build the most comprehensive, on-the-ground discussion about Iraq's future right here. Your insight is invaluable. So leave a comment, and while you're at it, if this deep dive has given you a new understanding of what's happening in Iraq, do us a favor, like this video, share it with your friends and on your social media, and subscribe to the channel for our continuing updates. Because understanding change is the first step toward being a part of it.